Hi, welcome to Listen2Riches. Today, I would like to introduce a book to all of you, Influence. In our daily lives, have you ever wondered why real estate agents often show customers rundown properties that no one seems to want to buy? Or why supermarkets are always keen on offering free trials? And how can a misprinted paper currency with a face value of $1 be worth hundreds of times more? These questions are all answered by Influence. The author of this book is Robert Cialdini, often referred to as the father of influence. He is not only a renowned social psychologist, but also an authority in the field of global influence research. Throughout his career, Cialdini has worked with Fortune 500 companies such as Google, Microsoft, Bayer, Coca-Cola, and PwC, as well as institutions like the Kennedy School of Government and the U.S. Department of Justice. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime partner and vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, once said that Cialdini's influence on him in the realm of influence surpasses that of any other scientist. Since its publication in 1986, this book has been a bestseller for 31 years, translated into 26 languages with over 3 million copies sold worldwide. Even today, it continues to top the charts in consumer behavior and applied psychology on Amazon. Influence is a comprehensive book with nearly 290,000 words divided into 8 chapters. So, how are we truly persuaded by others? How can we use the power of influence to impact others and achieve greater success? Let's delve into this book together. I will analyze influence from 2 perspectives. First, what is influence and what are its fundamental conditions? Second, how can we harness influence and protect ourselves from being manipulated by others? Now, let's explore the first question: what is influence? As the name suggests, influence is the ability to affect others. Specifically, it is the ability to change their thoughts and behaviors in a way that they willingly accept. In the book, we discover that when influence is skillfully wielded, it can even shape people's thoughts and become a formidable weapon. Let's take the example of the frenzy surrounding the launch of new Apple iPhones in China in years past. Whenever a new model was released, long lines would form outside Apple's flagship stores. Some die-hard fans would even queue overnight just to get their hands on one. At that time, while the prevailing price of smartphones was only few $100s, iPhones, which cost more than $1,000, became a luxury item. Consequently, many people scrimped and saved to buy these phones, and some even joked about selling a kidney to buy an iPhone. So, what is the magic behind a mere phone? What influences people's irrational buying behavior? In reality, it's all about the power of influence. When you don't really want to do something, but external forces trigger your actions in various ways, altering your intentions and causing an involuntary reflex, be cautious, you are being manipulated by imperceptible influences. The book summarizes 3 trigger types that can activate our reflexes. Let's explore the 3 scenarios that make us slaves to influence. Firstly, there's the concept of fixed behavioral patterns. This is essentially a form of cognitive inertia. As people often say, habit becomes second nature. Cialdini points out that our behavior is often dominated by fixed behavioral patterns. When faced with a certain situation, we tend to judge it based on our past experiences. For example, when a beautiful woman walks by a group of men, they unconsciously take a second look. For men, this is a fixed behavioral pattern triggered by the attractiveness of the woman, stirring their innate mating instinct. Thousands of years of evolution have ingrained many such fixed behavioral patterns in our minds. Once a certain characteristic is triggered, we are influenced subconsciously. Secondly, there's the shortcut to thinking. Cialdini gives an example of the you get what you pay for principle. There was a jewelry store where emeralds just couldn't sell until one day the clerk accidentally doubled the price. Surprisingly, customers started coming in to make purchases. Did the customers suddenly become experts on jewelry? Or did the quality of the emeralds magically improve? Of course not. It's simply that people rely on past buying experiences, thinking that you get what you pay for and higher prices mean better quality. When we know little about emeralds, our minds tend to take the shortcut of equating higher prices with better quality based on past experiences. Thirdly, there's the principle of cognitive contrast. Take smartphones, for example. Compared to the prices of other smartphones on the market at the same time, Apple's iPhones are priced higher, which raises people's expectations and ignites their desire to purchase. Another example is why real estate agents often take customers to see a few rundown houses first. Many real estate agents like to employ this tactic, initially showing customers overpriced, dilapidated houses before revealing the properties they genuinely want to sell. This sudden improvement in comparison strikes customers as more appealing. The actions of real estate agents vividly demonstrate the power of the cognitive contrast principle. These three trigger types, fixed behavioral patterns, shortcuts to thinking, and cognitive contrast, preliminarily reveal the operating principles of influence. These trigger types can be considered the fundamental conditions for the emergence of influence. Once these basic conditions are in place, influence can take effect through various avenues. Cialdini believes that there are roughly 6 avenues, which are also the 6 major principles of influence. Now let's explore the second question. What are the 6 principles of influence and how do they work? How can we resist them? The 6 principles are reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity. These principles constitute the avenues through which influence takes effect, and those skilled in persuasion can adeptly employ these principles to make us yield. First, let's delve into the principle of reciprocity. This principle can be summarized by the old saying, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." It refers to the idea that when someone does you a favor, you should try to repay it. Why does the reciprocity principle work? Because most people don't like those who only take and never give in return. We also want to avoid being seen as opportunistic or as individuals who are ungrateful and seek to profit without effort. Therefore, we are inclined to follow this rule of returning kindness. Throughout history, the reciprocity principle has been a valuable tool of influence. Cialdini suggests that reciprocity is achieved through 2 methods. The first is forced reciprocity, where the party receiving the concession typically responds in kind. For instance, many businesses like to offer small free samples to potential customers as a way to test whether customers like the samples. This tactic is advantageous because it is not just a gift, it appears to help customers understand the product, but it also triggers a sense of indebtedness in the customer's mind. Many people feel it would be impolite to take the freebie and walk away, so they choose to purchase some products, which is reciprocity in action. The second method takes it a step further and is known as the rejection then retreat strategy. Since those who receive concessions usually feel compelled to reciprocate, people are willing to make an initial concession to make it easier to trigger influence. Doesn't this remind you of the idiom, retreat to advance? Compared to the first method of reciprocity, the rejection then retreat strategy is more sophisticated. In the field of marketing, this strategy is nearly foolproof. For instance, in a beauty salon, if salespeople want a customer to purchase a complete beauty package, they typically start by presenting 3 different treatment options. When the customer, due to factors like high prices, is unable to make a purchase, the rejection then retreat strategy is employed. At this point, the salesperson recommends only one of the treatment options to the customer. The customer perceives this as a concession, and out of a sense of reciprocation, they hesitate to refuse and readily agree to make the purchase. If the salesperson had initially presented only one treatment option, the outcome might not have been as smooth. Since the reciprocity principle is so powerful, are we helpless against it? Certainly not. First, when faced with a request, we should assess whether the request is genuine or has ulterior motives. If we genuinely agree with the proposal, we can accept it appropriately. However, if we realize that the other party's concession is merely a ploy to trigger the rejection then retreat strategy, we can free ourselves from the induced sense of obligation and resist their influence. The second principle of influence is commitment and consistency. This principle refers to our tendency to maintain consistency between our words and actions. Once we make a choice or take a stance, we experience internal and external pressure to align our actions with that commitment. Under this pressure, we strive to act in a way that validates our previous decision. Also, parents are role models for their children, and if parents' words and actions don't align, children might mimic inconsistency. In our lives, those who are inconsistent in their words and actions are often seen as mentally confused, hypocritical, or even problematic. On the other hand, high consistency between words and actions is often associated with a strong personality and high intelligence. In the principle of commitment and consistency, commitment plays a significant role, so we must be cautious when accepting trivial requests. Casual commitments can influence our self-perception. They not only increase our compliance but also make us more willing to do things unrelated to our initial promise. Cialdini calls this the foot-in-the-door technique. For example, in marketing, personal commitments are essential in preventing customers from reneging on contracts. The American Cancer Society, for instance, frequently solicits donations from residents. Before one such fundraising campaign, social psychologist Steve Sherman called residents and asked if they would be willing to help. Obviously, no one wanted to be seen as lacking compassion, and many people agreed to volunteer. After obtaining the commitment of residents, the American Cancer Society later called to ask for their assistance. The number of volunteers increased sevenfold compared to the previous campaign. The binding power of commitment is truly effective. Furthermore, major companies like cleaning products and food corporations often hold promotional essay contests where participants write short essays starting with, "I like something because," praising the qualities of the product currently on sale. This practice, through written commitment, convinces customers that these products are worth buying. Written commitments are effective because the more effort one puts into fulfilling a commitment, the greater their influence, and things that are hard-fought for are often valued more highly. Commitment is not limited to verbal promises. Commitments related to thoughts and identity positions are equally effective. Sometimes our casual responses are a form of commitment that influences our behavior. There is a famous marketing case where a salesman asked, "Do you have a high-end vacuum cleaner at home?" The housewife replied, "We have one, but it's not particularly high-end. Something cheaper would do." The salesman used this opportunity to promote his high-end vacuum cleaner and successfully made a sale. However, we don't have to let the principle of commitment and consistency control us. When we realize that we are being manipulated by others, we can exercise caution and not make commitments lightly. Sometimes a single statement we make can be seized upon by others to hold us to a commitment. In such cases, we might feel deceived. When we become aware of being deceived, we can break free from the shackles of consistency. As consumers, regardless of past commitments, we should forget them when making purchasing decisions and use rational judgment to decide whether something is genuinely needed, resolutely refusing unnecessary requests. The third principle of influence is social proof. This principle suggests that when facing uncertainty or ambiguity, we tend to follow the opinions and actions of others. Seeing others take a certain action makes us believe it is the right thing to do. This is known as the herd mentality. Usually, when we are uncertain or encounter unexpected situations, we follow the behavior of others to avoid making mistakes. Here's a somewhat chilling example. Cialdini mentions a theory called the Werther effect, named after Goethe's novel, The Sorrows of Young Werther. When this novel became a sensation, it led to a wave of suicides across Europe as the story's protagonist, Werther, commits suicide. Some readers became so obsessed with the story that it triggered a rash of suicides, resulting in the novel being banned in several countries. This pathological social conformity is known as the Werther effect. Even in modern society, news about suicide can still trigger the Werther effect. Data from studies cited in the book show that every suicide report may lead to 58 additional suicides that would not have otherwise occurred. People are more willing to imitate groups they perceive as similar to themselves. For example, after reading suicide reports, those who have experienced setbacks or confusion in life are more likely to view suicide as a way of relief and follow the same path. Apple Incorporated also adeptly employs the principle of social proof. Open any of Apple's commercials and you'll find that whether it's the visuals, colors, or music, they are vibrant, stylish, distinctive, and sometimes unconventional. These advertisements convey the message that those who use Apple products are avant-garde, unique individuals. Apple hopes that viewers of these ads will associate these traits with users of their products, making those who consider themselves fashionable and avant-garde more inclined to buy Apple products. Apple utilizes the principle of social proof to shape people's attitudes toward their products and guide them toward making a purchase. It's safe to say that this strategy is highly effective in marketing. Robert Cialdini believes that unfamiliar natural and social environments harbor significant uncertainty, and this uncertainty contributes to the operation of the principle of social proof. In recent years, an increasing number of Chinese brands have expanded overseas. While brands like Haier, Lenovo, Tencent, and others have found success in going global, Chinese brands still face numerous challenges in unfamiliar foreign markets. Among the various solutions, in addition to strengthening the appeal of brand culture and enhancing brand strength, experts also highlight the use of the principle of social proof to increase the level of identification between the brand and consumers as an effective way to capture market share in foreign territories. For example, in 2016, at the World Mobile Congress in Barcelona, Huawei changed the color of its company logo from red to black and white. Huawei's executive director and chief marketing officer, Su Wei, stated, "Red is eye-catching, while black and white are inclusive and more in line with international fashion modesty." It's well known that red in Western societies can evoke associations with fire and blood, conveying aggression. In contrast, black and white are more likely to be associated with seriousness, purity, and elegance, creating a sense of calm and inclusivity. This change by Huawei is seen as an attempt to send a signal of openness and collaborative success to international markets. By altering the color of its logo, Huawei aimed to change its brand image, gain international recognition, and earn market approval. We often mechanically adhere to the principle of social proof. If we want to resist it, we need to make rational judgments and be vigilant against things that manipulate our behavior. Remember that the truth often lies in the hands of a few, and staying vigilant can protect us well. For example, in financial investments, the other party might extensively promote how many people have purchased a product and how much money they've made in a year. However, don't blindly trust investment returns and product sales figures. Believe that windfalls from the sky are rare. When faced with a mindset of blindly following and seeking small advantages, firmly say no. The fourth principle of influence is liking. The liking principle is somewhat akin to birds of a feather flock together. Most people tend to be more easily persuaded by requests from people they know and like. Some individuals, even if we don't know them at all, can utilize this principle to make us comply with their requests. Let's first examine the good cop, bad cop scenario that Cialdini mentions. In TV shows, during police interrogations, we often see two police officers in the interrogation room. Typically, these two officers play different roles during the interrogation. One assumes the role of the bad cop, displaying a stern and intimidating demeanor. They use threats and insults to apply immense psychological pressure on the suspect. Then enters the good cop, who usually starts by soothing the bad cop and adopts an understanding and empathetic persona. The good cop patiently persuades the suspect, making them feel that the good cop is on their side, willing to cooperate. Soon, in the eyes of the suspect, the good cop transitions from being a savior to a trustworthy confidant, someone they can confess to. This principle also explains why well-dressed political candidates often fare better in elections. Why do car advertisements frequently feature attractive female models? All of these are the result of the liking principle at work. There are many reasons why we like someone, such as having an attractive appearance, sharing a similar background, or having had pleasant interactions or collaborations with them. These factors can trigger the liking principle, making us like another person. In the field of marketing, this principle also explains why celebrity endorsements are highly effective and why advertisers consistently associate products with celebrities to make a profit. Sports shoe, tennis racket, and golf equipment manufacturers pay successful professional athletes to link their products with these athletes' positive and healthy images. Cosmetics and clothing brands choose currently popular celebrities as their image spokespersons, hoping to capitalize on the birds of a feather flock together phenomenon to boost product sales. Of course, the liking principle is not without its risks. When a celebrity endorser is exposed to negative news, the products they endorse often face the immediate consequences. Therefore, celebrity endorsements have their pros and cons. So, how can you say no to the liking principle? It's quite simple. Focus on the results rather than the causes. If you find yourself quickly liking someone, be cautious. They might be using the liking principle to their advantage. During transactions, also distinguish between the trader and the trade itself, making decisions based on the merits of the deal, ensuring the ultimate satisfaction of the transaction. The fifth principle of influence is authority. The authority principle posits that titles, clothing, and identity serve as symbols of authority. Even adults with independent thinking abilities can sometimes act irrationally when faced with commands from an authority figure. In the field of medicine, the authority principle is particularly pronounced. Let's start with an example of a medication error. Researchers made phone calls to nurses in 22 different departments, and the content of the calls was the same. They claimed to be doctors from the hospital and requested that the nurses administer a 20 milligram medication to patients in a specified ward. This method of conveying prescriptions via phone calls violated hospital regulations, and the medication mentioned in the calls was not approved for widespread use. The maximum daily dose was only 10 milligrams. Moreover, the nurses had never met or spoken to the caller before and should have, in theory, refused. However, 95% of the nurses who received the calls rushed to the pharmacy without hesitation, fetched the corresponding dose of medication, and prepared to administer it to the patients. So, what features make someone appear authoritative? Let's briefly discuss three symbolic representations: titles, clothing, and badges of identity. First, titles are both the most challenging and the easiest symbols of authority to obtain. They are challenging because earning a title requires years of hard work, yet they are easy because some individuals readily apply labels to themselves, like someone selling medicine self-proclaiming to be a miracle doctor. And obtaining a professor's title can also be relatively straightforward. During conversations, when someone identifies themselves as a professor, the atmosphere often becomes respectful and people tend to comply. Second is clothing, which, compared to titles, is a more tangible symbol of authority but also easier to counterfeit. In police records of fraudulent crimes, there are many examples of individuals using disguises, such as donning a white lab coat at times, a police officer's gray uniform at other times, or even a military uniform. People often realize they've been deceived by clothing too late. The third form of identity symbols can be presented in various ways, including flashy clothing, extravagant jewelry, luxurious cars, etc. All of these can serve as markers of authoritative status. For example, a study in the San Francisco Bay Area showed that owners of luxury cars are more likely to receive special respect from others and gain compliance more easily. Is authority always right? Another example from our daily lives, in recent years, television shopping has become a battlefield for the abuse of the authority principle. Similarly, in the field of medicine, we often see various medication advertisements on television. These advertisements often share a common feature. They feature someone in a white lab coat sitting in front of the screen, either taking live questions from viewers or passionately describing the miraculous effects of the medication. These individuals usually claim to be doctors or master miracle healers, and they speak eloquently on television. Many people fall into marketing scams because they are misled by their authority. It's only when the truth is exposed that they realize these individuals are not experts, and some may even have questionable records. Undoubtedly, these are the consequences of titles, clothing, and identity symbols triggering blind obedience to authority. To resist being misled by authority, the best defense strategy is to prepare in advance. We can start with 2 points. First, identify whether the person is genuinely an expert. If you lack the ability to identify, it's better not to trust easily. Second, discern whether what the authority is saying is accurate. If you lack the ability to discern, it's also better to maintain a skeptical attitude. The 6th principle of influence is scarcity. The scarcity principle is easy to understand. People generally consider rare things more valuable. When we see something we desire become scarce, we are easily swayed by emotions and lose rationality. Why can a misprinted $1 bill sell for hundreds of times its face value? Why does a banned movie arouse people's desire to watch it even more? Why, at auctions, do people continuously bid even when the price of the item has far exceeded their initial expectations? These are all examples of the scarcity principle in action. Limited quantities and deadlines can effectively trigger people's rebelliousness, and the fear of losing something seems to be more motivating than the desire to gain something. Cialdini mentioned that if something becomes scarce due to some defect, even trash can turn into a valuable treasure. Here are a few simple examples. Every New Year's Eve, shopping malls always hold large-scale sales or discount events. During these times, customers' buying enthusiasm is rapidly ignited, and they rush into stores competing to buy things they wouldn't normally consider purchasing. Similarly, real estate agents often want to sell houses to hesitant buyers. They typically inform clients that other buyers have already viewed the property and expressed great satisfaction, and more potential buyers will visit tomorrow. In most cases, these hesitant buyers, upon hearing this, will make up their minds immediately. Even in romantic relationships, the scarcity principle can play a role. When a girlfriend complains that her partner isn't caring enough, she may sometimes list the actions of other admirers. While this might be pure imagination or fabrication, alert partners often immediately make more efforts, achieving the desired effect for the girlfriend. Resisting the influence of the scarcity principle is not difficult, but it's not easy when taking action, especially in a direct competitive environment where people are more prone to lose their rationality. In such cases, we must constantly remind ourselves that scarce things do not become better just because they are hard to obtain. Whether something is scarce or abundant, its functionality remains the same. These 6 principles outlined are the 6 paths through which influence is exerted. To recap, the first is the principle of reciprocity, the second is the principle of commitment and consistency, the third is the principle of social proof, the fourth is the principle of liking, the fifth is the principle of authority, and the sixth is the principle of scarcity. Now let's summarize the main content of the book Influence. The book, through the analysis of fixed behavior patterns, cognitive shortcuts, and the principle of cognitive contrast, helps us understand the conditions necessary to exert influence. The achievement of influence is realized through these 6 paths: the principle of reciprocity, the principle of commitment and consistency, the principle of social proof, the principle of liking, the principle of authority, and the principle of scarcity. The book reveals some communication principles among people in real life, or more accurately, some psychological mechanisms allowing us to see beyond appearances and understand the essence. To resist negative influence, this is where influence concludes. Congratulations on finishing another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Listen to Riches, like, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom with practice to achieve our financial goals and create a better future. Thank you and see you next time.